You know, I've been thinking a lot about how hard we are on ourselves. It's almost like we're programmed to pick ourselves apart, isn't it? We wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and instead of seeing a whole, beautiful, living, breathing person, we zero in on what's wrong. The dark circles under our eyes, the way our hair isn't sitting right, the shape of our body. It's automatic, like a reflex, and it doesn't stop there. It's not just physical. We overanalyze every conversation. We replay moments where we stumbled over our words or said something awkward. We worry about how we're perceived. We beat ourselves up for not being more confident, more successful, more everything. But why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Think about it for a second. When you look at a friend, someone you really care about, do you pick them apart? Do you focus on their flaws? Of course not. You see them as a whole person. You see their kindness, their humor, their heart. You don't love them less because they're not perfect. So why is it so hard to extend that same grace to ourselves? I think part of the problem is the way we've been conditioned. From the moment we're old enough to understand the world around us, we're bombarded with messages that tell us we're not enough. We're told we need to buy this product, follow this trend, achieve this goal to finally be worthy. It's everywhere, on TV, on social media, even in the people around us. And the thing is, we internalize those messages. We start to believe them. We think, if I could just fix this one thing about myself, I'd be happy. I'd feel confident. I'd be accepted. But here's the kicker. There's always another thing. Even when you achieve the goals you thought would make you feel good, there's always something else waiting to make you feel like you're falling short. That's the trap. The endless cycle of self-improvement without self-acceptance. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. You can't hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. Read that again. You can't hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. Real, lasting happiness doesn't come from fixing every perceived flaw. It comes from learning to embrace who you are, flaws and all. It's about seeing yourself as a whole, complex, messy, and beautiful human being. Not just a list of things you wish you could change. Now, I'm not saying self-acceptance is easy. It's not like you can just flip a switch and suddenly love everything about yourself. It's a process, it's a journey, and it's messy. Some days you'll feel like you're making progress. Other days the self-doubt will creep back in. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep trying. Start small. The next time you catch yourself thinking something negative about yourself, pause. Ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, challenge that thought. Replace it with something kinder, something more compassionate. For example, instead of saying, I'm so bad at this, try saying, I'm learning, I'm growing. Instead of saying, I'll never be good enough, try saying, I'm doing my best and that's enough. It feels weird at first, I won't lie. You're not used to talking to yourself that way. But over time, those small shifts in your inner dialogue can make a big difference. Another thing that helps is focusing on what you're grateful for. Not in a forced, everything's fine kind of way, but in a genuine way. Take a moment to appreciate your body for carrying you through the day, even if it doesn't look the way you want it to. Appreciate your mind for all the ways it helps you solve problems, even if it sometimes gets stuck in overthinking. Appreciate your heart for continuing to love and care, even when it's been hurt. Gratitude doesn't erase your struggles, but it helps put them into perspective. It reminds you that even on your worst days, there's still something good in you, something worth celebrating. And let's talk about social media for a second, because I know it's a huge part of why so many of us struggle with self-acceptance. Every time you scroll through your feed, you're seeing these carefully curated snapshots of other people's lives. They're highlight reels. It's so easy to compare your behind the scenes to someone else's polished, filtered version of reality. But here's the thing. You're not seeing the full picture. You're not seeing their insecurities, their struggles, their bad days. Everyone has them. even the people who seem like they have it all together. So stop holding yourself to an impossible standard. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be real. And being real means being imperfect. It means having days where you feel amazing and days where you feel like a mess. It means growing and learning and making mistakes along the way. You are enough exactly as you are right now. Not when you lose the weight, not when you get the promotion. I know that's hard to believe sometimes. I know there are days when it feels like the world is telling you otherwise. But let me tell you this. Your worth isn't something you have to earn. It's not something that can be taken away. It's inherent, it's yours. So the next time you're feeling like you're not enough, remember this. You are not defined by your flaws. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by the way you keep showing up, the way you keep trying, the way you keep growing. Self-acceptance isn't about settling. It's about starting from a place of love. Loving yourself enough to want the best for yourself, not because you're broken and need fixing, but because you deserve to thrive. So take a deep breath, give yourself a break, and remind yourself as many times as it takes that you are enough, because you are. And let's dive deeper into this idea of being enough, because I know it's easy to hear those words and think, okay, sure, that sounds nice, but it doesn't apply to me. Maybe you've been carrying this weight, this feeling that you're too far gone, that you've made too many mistakes, or that you don't deserve to feel good about yourself. Let me stop you right there. The truth is, self-acceptance doesn't have prerequisites. It's not something you have to earn. It's not something you can run out of chances for. It's a choice, a radical, defiant choice to say, I am worthy of love and respect no matter what. And I know that can feel like the hardest thing in the world to believe, especially when you've spent years convincing yourself otherwise. But let me share something I've learned. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you experience the world. If you're constantly tearing yourself down, you'll start to believe that's how others see you too. If you tell yourself you're unworthy, you'll subconsciously seek out situations and people that reinforce that belief. On the flip side, when you start to show yourself kindness, something amazing happens. You begin to see the world differently. You realize that most of the judgment you feel isn't coming from others, it's coming from within. And when you quiet that inner critic, even just a little, you make space for something new, self-compassion. Now, let's talk about what self-compassion actually looks like, because it's not just sitting in a bubble bath or treating yourself to something nice. Those things can be great, but self-compassion goes deeper. It's about how you respond to yourself in moments of struggle. Think about the last time you messed up, like really messed up. Maybe you made a mistake at work, or you said something you regretted, or you let someone down. What did that inner voice say to you? Was it harsh? Did it call you names, make you feel small, remind you of every other time you failed? Now imagine how you'd talk to a close friend if they came to you, feeling the way you did in that moment. You wouldn't berate them. You wouldn't rub their mistakes in their face. You'd comfort them. You'd remind them that everyone messes up, that it's part of being human, and that it doesn't define them. Self-compassion means learning to give yourself that same grace. It means saying, I made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake. It means being gentle with yourself when you're struggling, instead of piling on more shame. And I know what some of you might be thinking, but if I'm too soft on myself, won't I stop trying? Won't I just settle for less? Here's the thing. Self-compassion isn't about giving up. It's about creating a foundation of kindness and understanding that allows you to grow in a healthy way. When you accept yourself as you are, you're not saying, this is it, I'm done. You're saying, this is where I am right now and that's okay. From here, I can move forward. Let's use an example. Imagine you're planting a garden. If you spend all your time criticizing the soil, blaming the weather, and wishing the seeds would just magically grow faster, what happens? You get frustrated. You might even give up before you see any results. But if you approach that garden with patience and care, if you water the seeds, give them sunlight, and trust the process, you give it a chance to thrive. That's what self-acceptance is like. It's the sunlight and water you need to grow. And growth isn't always visible right away. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it feels like nothing's happening. But every small step counts. So how do we take those small steps? How do we start to build a life that's rooted in self-acceptance? One of the most powerful tools I've found is mindfulness. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly effective. When you catch yourself in a spiral of negative thoughts, pause, take a deep breath, and instead of getting lost in the story your mind is telling you, come back to the present moment. Ask yourself, what's real right now? Not what you're afraid of, not what you regret, but what's actually happening in this moment. Often you'll realize that most of your suffering comes from resisting reality, wishing things were different, blaming yourself for the past, or worrying about the future. Mindfulness helps you step out of that cycle and into the here and now. And in the here and now, you have the power to choose how you respond to yourself. Another step is learning to set boundaries, not just with other people, but with yourself. For example, if you're constantly scrolling through social media and it's making you feel worse about yourself, set a limit. If you're overworking yourself to the point of burnout, give yourself permission to rest. Boundaries aren't about shutting yourself off from the world. They're about protecting your energy and prioritizing your well-being. When you respect your own needs, you're telling yourself, I matter. I'm worth taking care of. And finally, surround yourself with people who uplift you. It's so important to have a support system, friends, family, mentors, or even an online community who remind you of your worth when you forget. People who celebrate your victories, no matter how small, and who hold space for you on the tough days. Because here's the thing, you don't have to do this alone. Self-acceptance is a personal journey, yes, but that doesn't mean you can't lean on others along the way. The more you practice, the more you'll notice a shift. Little by little, you'll start to see yourself differently. You'll realize that the things you once thought were flaws are just parts of what make you unique. You'll stop striving for perfection and start embracing the messy, beautiful reality of being human. And one day you'll look back and realize that the person you used to criticize, the person you used to think wasn't good enough, is someone you're deeply proud of. Not because they changed completely, but because they had the courage to show up as themselves. That's the power of self-acceptance. It doesn't just change how you see yourself, it changes how you move through the world. It frees you to live authentically, to take risks, to connect with others in a deeper way. So keep going. Keep choosing kindness even when it feels uncomfortable. Keep reminding yourself that you are enough, even when it's hard to believe. Because the more you practice, the more it becomes a part of who you are. And trust me, you're worth it.